One sunny day on June 10th, 1985, Edward and his parents were out at Long Beach. He and his parents were lying down in the sand. You could feel the nice, soft, warm sand between their feet. They were relaxing, watching the waves, but soon it was getting dark, and Edward left his parents and sat closer to the waves to watch the sunset. The waves splashed against his feet. Sploosh! He was admiring the beautiful sunset. The sunset was a light yellow, and the sky was filled with purple and pinkish colors. Soon, when it was getting darker, Edward turned to see his parents, and they weren't there. Frightened, Edward wondered out loud, where could they have gone with all the stuff and leave me? He felt so scared and lost, he started walking to the car, thinking they were waiting for him, so he rushed there. As soon as he got to the car, he started panicking. No sight of his parents. He called his mom, no answer, straight to voicemail. Ugh, Edward said aloud. Where would they be? He then called his father. It went straight to voicemail too. He started walking home. He felt tired and scared. When he got home, he took a shower to relax. Later, he fell asleep, thinking his parents would come home. Edward woke up the next morning, hoping his parents were back. He got up and looked around the house. Everything was still the same as yesterday. He walked into his parents' room, and they weren't still there. Not here. Where could they be? Edward got ready and went to the police. Edward told Officer Dewey, "The last time I saw my parents was yesterday at the beach." Officer Dewey replied, "Relax, we will try to find your parents." Edward walked to a little diner nearby to eat some breakfast. After he had eaten, he walked back to the police station. Officer Dewey said, "Go home and relax. Let us do our job." Edward walked around town to get his mind off of things. He saw some people walking around and going into stores. A little later, the sky had turned a light dark gray with no sun shining. Edward had saw a sharp broken glass along the sidewalk. As he kept walking, there was an old, run-down, abandoned park. The trees were dead and rotten, and the grass was dead and yellow. It was getting dark. He started walking home. He got home and was getting ready to go to bed. Edward thought, one day without my parents. Another day passed. Edward said, "I'm all alone. I'm never going to see my parents again." A couple days passed, and Edward was missing his parents so much. While Edward was at home on June 15th, someone reported two bodies, male and female, up on the shore. Officer Dewey rushed right over to the bodies at the beach. Officer Dewey whispered, "These are Edward's parents." The police officers were investigating where the bodies were found. Later on, Edward left his house and walked to town. Edward was shocked to see cop cars at the beach and walked closer. He then saw two bodies with many wounds around their chest area. Edward realized it was his parents. "No!" Edward screamed. Officer Dewey turned right away when he heard someone scream. He knew Edward had screamed and ran to him. Officer Dewey said, "I was going to tell you later that your parents had been stabbed to death and both thrown into the ocean." "No!" shrieked Edward. "This can't be real." Officer Dewey replied, "It's real. Hopefully things will get better. I'm so sorry for your losses." Edward struck into shock. He just couldn't say nothing. He was standing there stuck, doing nothing. Officer Dewey drove Edward home. After Dewey left, Edward broke down in tears. He was crying and couldn't stop. Edward thought, "I'm never going to see my parents again." 2 days passed, and he broke down every night. Officer Dewey and a couple other officers are still investigating, trying to see who murdered Edward's innocent parents. The forensics are keeping in touch with Officer Dewey about Edward's parents. The forensics, Officer Dewey and Edward, know that they had both been stabbed several times in the chest area with a full-tang knife. The murderer or murderers are unknown. So far, the forensics are trying their best. Officer Dewey keeps in touch with Edward. A week passed. The forensics were trying hard, but there wasn't so much evidence. Edward still breaks down. Every night, he's lost without his parents and feels so lonely. Another week passed. Edward still breaks down, and the forensics couldn't help anymore in solving Edward's parents' death. His parents' death was unsolved. Weeks are passing. Edward is lonely and breaks down every night, crying so much, missing his parents. It's been a month now. Edward breaks down every couple days. 8 months have passed, almost a year. Edward still breaks down, at least once a month. On a year of his parents' death, he goes back to the beach in memory of his parents. on June 10th, 1986. Edward was walking on the pier when all of a sudden he thought of the day he lost his parents, and when he found out that they had been stabbed to death, he just started screaming.